Can you introduce yourself to us, Adam?
Yeah, my name's Adam Ampulski, and I'm the solo developer for Snoozing Pixel.
Nice. And so, as the solo developer for Snoozing Pixel, you work on Skjoldur Story, correct?
Yeah, it's gonna be my first game, and Skjoldur Story is an indie Zelda-like adventure game where all you get is a shield. And the twist is that, whenever you block with this shield, you then get to use that ability which you blocked for things like puzzle solving, getting past obstacles, or just flat out fighting.
And so, speaking of these obstacles and puzzles that we're going to be seeing in the game, can you tell us what the world is like, what the abilities are, the dungeons? There's a little bit more detail as to what players can expect when they hop into the game.
Yeah, it's a colorful pixel art world. I'm trying to have it be an homage to games like the original Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, that kind of thing, where you explore, play at your own pace. There's a balance between combat, exploration, puzzles. Uh, Throughout the world, there's like runestones scattered, which you use to open dungeons, and you can open the dungeons in any order you want. And there's some hidden areas and mini games kind of scattered along the way to break up the rhythm of the game and that sort of thing.
So, it's kind of like an open world.
Yeah, it's like old school open world, uh, and it's don't let the colorful looks fool you either. Like, it is a challenging game. I've had more than one person at DreamHack tell me that it's Souls-like, even though it doesn't look Souls-like at all.
Yeah, the funny thing is, it feels like Souls like you at this point you can put it with any game, right? It's such an interchangeable
Yeah,
term.
yeah, definitely.
And so, speaking of kind of hitting on those runes that you were talking about, there's like some Norse elements in the game. What inspired you to make that creative choice?
Um, it's kind of a funny story. When I first started out thinking that I was gonna, quit my job and work on a game, and I was gonna be like a Zelda-like game, my friends joked that I should make it a Viking game and call it Legend of Helga. Except I don't think that would fly too well. I'd probably have a lawsuit on my hands or two. And so I kind of kept with the theme, but I didn't keep the name. And at some point, like, I don't know where I was, just taking a walk outside or something. It's like, what if it's a Viking shield maiden, and that's all she had was literally a shield? And so I just
Does
kind of bounced that around my head and just kept going with it.
does the character have a name that you play as?
Uh, no, I mean, in my head, I think it's Helga just because of that story. But there's no name. There's actually no text in the game at all. Everything's kind of told through pictures. Even signs are like little pictographs and little animations. So less localization for me at the end.
Which I'd imagine is kind of difficult to do from a developer's standpoint, right? Because it's a lot of you're conveying a lot of information without any text. I'd imagine that's kind of difficult.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it kind of forces the creative side too, and I guess more artistic element. Art is kind of like finding beauty through limitation, that sort of thing. And you'd be surprised how, like, if you force yourself to work within certain restrictions, what you can come up with. And I ended up learning a lot too along the way. And some people are like, "Oh, that's such a great idea," and it's like, yeah, part of it stemmed from my laziness and not wanting to localize everything, but I'm kind of happy for that because it did end up looking kind of cool, and I don't know, I like the result.
Yeah, yeah, the game does look pretty awesome for the pixel art and everything. And I noticed, along with the difficulty, it has like a very cute aesthetic. Was there a specific reason you made that choice?
Uh, I like colors. I love pixel art. There's a lot of games out there whose styles I love, like the kind of borderless pixel art. So like the biggest one is probably like Hyperlight Drifter. There's a
Mhm.
few others like uh, Songbringer or Kamiko for the Nintendo Switch. I love kind of that borderless pixel art style, and I decided from the get go that that's what I wanted. And as I worked on it, I slowly realized how important color is, and just kind of played around, and eventually I just sort of stumbled into this aesthetic that kind of works for me.
So, considering that you've developed the game for yourself, that means you made obviously the game design, but you also made the visuals and you made the sounds and music. Is that correct?
Yep, I've done all of it.
And can you just explain to me a little bit what that's like and how much of a learning process you had to go through in order to, I guess, master some of those skills?
Yeah, so I come from a programming background. That's what I went to school for.
Hmm.
I worked 4 years in basically enterprise software engineering. So like I know how to code. I enjoy doing it. It's not something like I love to do in my free time, but for work, like it's something that makes the 8 hours pass by very quickly for me. But I also like kind of artsy things like some of my hobbies are like tabletop gaming, playing D&D, and like I like painting miniatures and stuff. But I never really did any sort of um, like pixel art or any of that. But I figured I could probably figure it out, and if I couldn't, then down the line I'd probably be able to find somebody who could help me. Um, but yeah, so I just kind of kept working at it. It helps to have a bit of an ego and be like, hey, if so and so can do it, you can too,
Hmm.
and just kind of keep on plugging away until something works and you're satisfied with it.
A lot of video tutorials.
Oh yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of tutorials, watching a lot of streams, just reading, always iterating, always learning.
Sounds like a lot of patience too. Like it's not going to get built in a day.
Oh no, definitely not. But it's if you enjoy learning, it's a great thing because when you learn how things work, you can also appreciate them all more too. So like I can go back, play other games, and I look at them in a completely different light, and it's like, wow, man, somebody hand drew all this. Like that's amazing.
Hmm. Hmm. That stuff's nuts. I mean, look at Skullgirls, right? Like that was such a passion project
Yeah.
that involved a lot of the hand drawn stuff. And Cuphead, another one, like just mind blowing to think that every animation in that is hand drawn.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. Like I draw everything, but I do use some tile sets, for like some of the maps. So I like
Hmm.
some walls and stuff that are repeated. I can't imagine hand drawing everything. Like I'm really slow at drawing stuff, and I have to correct it like 50 times.
Well, I'll tell you one thing though, it came out very impressive. It looked very
Oh,
awesome.
thanks.
I loved the little characters, right? The enemies that you fight against in the game. Like
Hmm.
you said, everything looks so cute that when you first jump into the game, you're like, oh, this is gonna be easy. This guy shoots a little ball. All right, get the ball, shoot it right back at him. Done. Now you learn that mechanic. Then you go to the next level, and next thing you know, there's six of these guys just throwing balls from all directions. There's even like I love that you added this kind of like water spirit that's just in the ocean that will just throw projectiles at you. And if you're not paying attention, you'll just get smacked right in the head with it. You know?
Yeah, he's kind of like from the original Zelda. There's like I forgot if it's a Hydra or like a sea dragon. It just pops up and shoots you annoyingly like the whole time. That's just kind of borrowing that for nostalgic purposes. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, those some of those enemies may look cute, but after you die to them a few times, it's they're not as cute anymore.
Yeah, they're pretty rage inducing. I was seeing in some of the gameplay footage, like actually dying within the demo, and I'm like, yep, I remember when that happened to me. And so I wanted to ask you, speaking of the levels, are there any like Easter eggs or anything like that hidden in the game? I feel like those little secret pockets where you can find items are like such a joyful moment in gaming. And I was curious to see if you had any of those in this game.
Yeah, I tried to add in as many as I can without detracting from the main gameplay, but at the same time, like I for a game like this, I understand the importance too of like breaking up the rhythm and finding like a little secret or mini game and be like, oh, this is cool. But yeah, there's some secrets and hidden areas. Like I'm aiming for a lot of nostalgia from like old school Nintendo games. So you'll see things like you know a couple hidden passages revealed by certain items or bombs. Some mini games you kind of jump into that maybe don't necessarily make sense, but they're fun and they still get you what you need. Um, there's a lot of like little nostalgic animations, like even grabbing the very first item in a game, the shield. I think a lot of older gamers will recognize kind of that pose, uh,
Nice.
things like that. And there's like things like mounts in the game. You can ride a wild boar or a goat, and if you get hit, it kind of runs away from you, like Yoshi did in Super Mario World. Just stuff like that.
And so I noticed in the game you could also there's like money, right? There's like these little silver coins you can get, and what look like these rune stones that you can also obtain. Can you tell me a little bit about the items that you can actually get in the game?
Yeah, so the rune stones are like a core component. So you collect those, and you can use them, or you will use them to open up the dungeons. So like you're wandering around, you kind of see a chest, and you figure out how the heck do I get to this? You solve a puzzle, or just run up to it, and you'll need an X amount of those to open whatever dungeons you find. And so when you find a dungeon, it'll tell you how many you need, and then you collect them, and then you go and open it up. So kind of like in like the original Mario N64, you'd collect stars, and then you could unlock the doors based on how many stars you had. It's sort of the same idea.
Nice.
And there's more rune stones in the overworld and mini games than you need. So like you won't necessarily find all of them. There's extras, or there's different ways of getting to where you need to be, basically. And then with the money, that's kind of I hate to use the term because it's not really roguelite, but the money is basically a way of helping you play at your own pace. So like if you're having a little rougher time, or you just you like exploring everything, you'll gather more money, and there's shops scattered that let you buy kind of persistent upgrades. So things like more health, and then there's a lot of like passive upgrades. So there's like a third move to your melee attack. There's an upgrade that lets you run and block at the same time. There's things that let you find hidden entrances, things like that. So if you're taking a longer time playing the game, you will get more upgrades, which help you play the game more easily, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. I wish I had some of those upgrades when I played the demo, because yeah, it was like I remember I think it was either the cactus enemies or these little guys that would throw boomerangs that were just brutal. Because there's just like so many things happening on the screen at once.
Yeah, people don't love the boomerangs.
Yeah, the boomerangs are intense. One thing I did want to ask you about when I was looking at some of the gameplay footage is, I think it was either after the dungeon or right. I think it was like the last room in the dungeon. You fight these 4 boomerang guys, you kill them, and then you get like this slab with the little boomerang character on it. Right. And I think there was 4 slots. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I'm guessing that's like going into the end game, right?
Yeah. So for that demo footage, I didn't have the boss fights in there. So there's basically 4 main dungeons, and then a 5th one, which is the final one. I had to cut scope because this project's taking way too long for me. But at launch, there'll be 4 scattered dungeons, which once completed, and you beat the bosses in them, you get these 4 little tiles, which unlock the final gate to the final tower, where you'll find a final dungeon and a final boss, which is kind of tougher to take on than all the previous ones.
Nice. Speaking of the game's development, can you tell me a little bit about what your timeline has been with Skjoldur Story, and just kind of how it's all fit in to this crazy world that is 2020 COVID?
Oh yeah, that's a fun one. Originally, I thought the game would take me like 2.5 years. I did the whole plan everything out, multiply by 2. I was being optimistic. I didn't multiply by 3 like everyone else told me. But and that kind of stretched on. I didn't realize how much I had to learn in the beginning, and how much I would have to rework from the beginning. And so like the first 6 months work for me was just kind of thrown out the window. I did take
Wow.
a break in between. So like I took a few months off to do some freelance work, make some extra money. And then I got back into it. And then, well, 2020 is a whole different story. It's like you take all the problems with game development, especially solo game development, from the get-go, and they all kind of get worse.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's let's see. Yeah, it affects you in ways you don't expect. So like most of it is on like the mental health side. For me, I've always been kind of a a work hard, play hard person.
Hmm.
Except I didn't realize that that saying works in both directions, at least for me. So like if I can't go out and work out with the people I want to work out with, if I can't go out with friends, I can't do any of that.
Yeah.
I also find that I lose focus at work. I'm more distracted, end up making a lot more mistakes that I have to go back and rework, and it's kind of a big mess.
Hmm.
And I don't want to use them as an excuse, but like my son was also born recently, so like the
Yeah.
lack of sleep multiplied all that by quite a bit.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
No, thanks.
Congratulations. When I found out about that, I was like, oh, I would love to ask you about the kid and everything because I actually my cousin just had a newborn as well, like not 6 days ago. You know,
Oh wow.
so it's very special. For me, a 25-year-old man with no relationship, no prospect of having a child anytime soon, seeing a newborn is like very special, and they're
Oh
so
yeah.
fragile.
Oh yeah. When they first pop out, yeah, definitely. Now my kid's he's bouncing around, hitting his head on everything.
Awesome for him, probably terrifying as a parent.
A little bit. It's more terrifying for mom.
And so I wanted to ask you, now that we talked about a little bit of how the game's development has been since we're in, this kind of new normal with COVID, I've noticed a lot of people picking up new hobbies, new skills. And I'm wondering if you have any tips for people who have been interested in kind of getting into game development, whether that's the game design, the actual art, or the music, since you've kind of done all of them.
Uh oh, let's see. Yeah, I guess number one thing is be honest with yourself and ask, do you want to make a game or do you want to get into game development? Like if it's a long-term thing. See, for me it was like I'm not sure on staying as a game dev, but I definitely like making a game has always been kind of like a lifetime goal for me, a dream for me. It's something I
Mhm.
had to get done, and like I'm gonna do whatever I can to get it done. Like something I can, I put my stamp on it, be proud of it, and maybe walk away, maybe come back, that sort of thing. But I think it's important to ask yourself that, and and come to grips with what you want to do at first, and then from there, um, if you want to do it full time, make sure you're doing it from a secure place. Make sure you have a nest egg built up, or maybe cut back your standard of living, whatever it takes. But if you're going to do it full time, make sure um, you're making conservative bets. It's going to take you longer than you think. It's going to be tougher than you think, and it's going to be stressful too. So make sure you're doing it from a place where you're secure and you have a safety net of some sort.
Nice.
Alternatively, if you're the type of person who can work after work, see, I have a lot of trouble doing it unless the work is very different. So like I couldn't come back from a programming job to come home to program. Like I
Yeah,
could not do it.
yeah,
But
I
like,
agree.
to like make music or something, or learn how to make music or learn how to draw, that was easier. But to work outside of work for me, I just could not do it. But if you're the type of person who can, I would definitely say do that first and see where that gets you and how you're feeling about it after, a few weeks, a few months, whatever.
Mhm. Nice. Nice. Well, I hope somebody out there gets inspired by those words, because I know, you know, I agree with your sentiment of like being realistic and asking the right questions before you even start, because I've always been passionate about the games industry, and I think most people, when they first think of that, they're like, oh, that means I have to make a game, or that means I have to make games in the future. But the industry is so widespread and diverse that I think for anyone who has a passion for games and wants to work in that industry, there is a lot of different avenues that are not necessarily game development.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And some of that I didn't realize until I was halfway through it and whatnot. Like, if you find out that you're passionate about games and you like to draw, you don't necessarily have to jump onto a game dev project and be the artist. You could also, you can make assets and put them out there. A lot of game devs buy assets for, placeholders, or they end up using them. Same thing with music and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different ways you can be part of it without jumping straight into the deep end like I did.
Yeah, just like everyone out here now, I think we just have to be a little bit more creative with our skills, considering that it feels like everything's digital this year.
Yeah, definitely.
So, kind of just to round out our conversation, Adam, what do you want players to get from diving into Skjoldur's story?
Uh, I mean, mainly I want them to have fun. It's I'm hoping to achieve a balance where if you want a challenge, it's there. I've had people even at DreamHack play the demo like almost religiously, like they had to beat it, and when they got killed, they went back to the same spot and kept redoing it until they got it. Like I want that aspect to be there, and yet at the same time, I've seen the opposite too, and that's what I'm aiming for. Like I am aiming for ultimately what is a play at your own pace adventure. If you want to just kind of space out and wander, like that's there too, because you'll stumble into things that the other players won't, and at the very least you'll pick up some money along the way, get some upgrades so that next time you're feeling up to it, you can take on that boss or whatever it is.
And so, Adam, I know the game was expected to release a little bit like in summer of this year. Was that correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did move the goalpost a couple times.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I think it's very realistic to have done that. And at least you're honest with it, right? And upfront. But can you give us an idea, more or less, when we can expect to get our hands on Skjoldur's story? Skjoldur's story? God, I still have a hard time with that.
Skjoldur. It's fine. That's probably not the best choice for an English-speaking audience, anyway. But
if people like it enough, they'll get used to it. There'll be raving fans who are going to be correcting other people.
Oh, that would be great. I'm gonna do everything I can to get it released this year. I was hoping to get it done before the end of November. With like testing is an unknown thing for me because I've seen some bugs that like make my hair turn gray, and I work alone, and it's like sometimes I don't know how many days they're gonna take, and I don't want something that's game breaking out there.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always planning for a date in my head, and then I plan at least like a month past that for testing. So I'm doing everything I can to get it done by this year. All I got left is like some cutscenes and some tweaks in the final boss fight, and then I just got to start testing and fixing. So
so exciting. So exciting. And people can expect to find it on Steam?
Yeah. Right now it's just releasing on Steam for PC.
Gotcha. Do you have any future plans where you expect to see Skjoldur's story go?
Really depends on how it's what the reception is. How launch goes. Like if it's good to mediocre, I might add on to it. I might port it to a couple some easier platforms, like like the game doesn't have a lot of controls, so porting to mobile wouldn't be too hard. And then like Linux and Mac. If the launch is good, like really good, I'm definitely going to go for a Switch launch as well. But
that's my boy. That's what I was going to ask about. I was like, this game would love the Switch.
Yeah. At the same time, like I do have a kid now, and we're looking to move out. So like if things don't go too well, I have to, I'm going to have to just pick up and find another full-time gig and take it from there.
Nice. Well, Adam, I really appreciate your time and effort on the game and your time here today talking with us about Skjoldur's story. I'm super excited to see the release of the game. I'll be up to date with that and asking you about it and seeing the Steam page. Make sure to wishlist the game. That's correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Please do.
Yes. If you have anything else you'd like to promote about the game, feel free to do that right now.
I think that's about it.
Nice. Well, can't wait to get my hands on it. And when it does come out, I can't wait to talk about it and see how the full release of the game is and show the rest of the world the efforts that you've put into this awesome game.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate having you on here.
Hey everybody, I'm Matthew Missing Pete, and this is the Weekly XP, your source for the week's top gaming headlines. On today's episode, we talk about Watch Dogs Legions getting hacked, an update coming to Among Us, and the long-awaited Mass Effect trilogy being remastered. Let's start leveling up.